Don't just aspire to make a living. Aspire to make a difference. Anything you want good, you can have. So claim it. Work hard to get it. When you get it, reach back. Pull someone else up. Each one, teach one.
The opposition to Barack Obama in America is something that most Americans would never admit and never speak about, but which was true. And what was that? Oprah Winfrey, not Angela Davis, Oprah Winfrey, not James Baldwin. Oprah Winfrey said the bulk of the opposition to the President of the United States of America has to do with the singular fact that he is an African-American man. All of the other justifications that have been adduced to support him.
10 minutes to get to the race issue. That's why, clearly, that's why Republicans
Sir, I didn't interrupt you
like
on your when you were offering bromides.
I didn't accuse anybody of being
I did not interrupt
racist.
you. Don't interrupt me. Don't deploy the very principles of white privilege to silence a black man on the panel because you don't want to talk about race.
Let's talk about the word can't. The word I feel is the most dangerous word in the English language. This word has been used to keep people down, especially the black community. We were told, you're black, you can't make it in America. You can't own anything, you can't get loans from banks, you can't live in nice places, and you can't start businesses. Everything that deters black people from advancing starts with can't.
The vast majority of Republicans are mindless and incapable of articulating a solid, serious intellectual conception or a political fix or remedy to the problem we have here. Thirdly, what people like our disputed colleague here on the right fail to acknowledge is that race plays a role in contaminating
this is a joke.
Professor Dyson and
Matt happening right here. No, come on, you can't even talk about anything without injecting race.
Just because you're doing a lot more doesn't mean you're getting a lot more done. Don't confuse movement with progress.
The word can't is very dangerous because it causes self-doubt and also stops your brain from working. So you can't figure out solutions unless it's put in front of another dangerous word called lose, as in can't lose. And we as a community need to adopt that can't lose attitude. I've adopted that attitude a long time ago. Look at me. Yeah, look at me right there. Jeez, how did I walk in those pants? How did I do that? I don't even understand. How did I do that? If anyone had the word can't use against them, it's me. I'm a former gang member. I've committed crimes. I'm from the hood, black, obviously, tatted up, barely have a real education, and yet I was able to change my mindset and make a name for myself.
Co-founder of the activist group BK Nation, and the Reverend Jacques DeGraff, a Fox News analyst. Where am I going wrong, Reverend, very specifically?
Your entire premise is false. The notion that this is a crime problem funded by or fueled by weak families is totally inaccurate. Racism is alive in America, and a lot of people don't want to talk about racism, and you're making this a law enforcement problem.
Well, that's what it is.
It's not a law enforcement problem. It's an allocation of resources problem. It's a justice problem.
Okay. Well, law enforcement and justice, I hate to inform you, Reverend, are tied in together. Now, do you believe...
Not in our community.
Do you believe...
That's the whole point.
Do you believe that most police officers in America don't like you because of the color of your skin?
That's irrelevant.
The only way you're ever going to get to the other side of this journey is you have got to suffer to grow. To grow, you must suffer. Most of this generation quits the second they get talked to. You did this wrong, or they get yelled at. It's so easy to be great nowadays because everybody else is, most people are weak.
I'm concerned when I'm in the presence of most police officers in America. When a police officer walks to me, I don't see a friend walking towards me.
Do you know that 99.9% of all police interactions with American citizens result in no violence? Do you know that?
Of course I know that.
Okay,
I
so
also
then
know
why would a rational person like you be afraid then?
because if a policeman could shoot a 12-year-old because he couldn't distinguish between whether he was a 12-year-old or a 20-year-old on 2 seconds' notice.
Well, mistakes are going to be made.
No, the mistakes. See, there are white people who live in public housing who've never been shot accidentally by a policeman.
So you do believe that police come in and target black people? You
I didn't
believe
say
that?
that. I
that's
believe
what you're
that,
saying to me.
I believe, no. I
what
believe,
I'm taking away from you.
Well, I believe, and others in our community believe, that we're at risk in a way that other Americans are
Because
not.
cops target blacks.
Favorite people right here. Check them out. Check them out. Laura Trump, Eric Trump, and Don Jr., and of course, the man himself. Yeah, that's me. That's me. Now imagine I allowed myself to be poisoned by the camp mentality.
The system has a different value toward black life, which is why black lives matter.
I couldn't disagree with you more. Mr. Powell, do you believe that most American police agents, 670,000 of them, don't like you because of the color of your skin?
I believe that we live in a country that is so rooted in racism, it permeates every aspect of the society.
And how does that define itself? I mean, am I a racist? Do I come across as somebody who doesn't like black people?
Since you asked the question,
yeah.
Even your opening memo, the way you presented all that stuff about black people, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, you know what? I could say the same thing about young white males who have committed the majority of white mass shootings in this country, but I wouldn't say that because I'm not going to perpetuate the mythology that all white men are dangerous.
Do you dispute any of the statistics that I put forth?
Actually, I do, because if you look at many of the crimes that are out there, from Wall Street crimes to certain drug arrests, a lot of these things are actually white people doing these things, not black folks.
So you believe that the police don't arrest whites and they
what I
arrest
believe
blacks?
is that people sometimes conveniently manipulate statistics to prove their agenda.
Right.
And the
These
real
are FBI stats. I'm sorry. I mean,
well, sir, I also have folks who work for the FBI, and those are not the accurate stats.
Right. Did you know that black Americans commit 1,000 more murders a year than white Americans, even though blacks are 13% of the population and whites are 63%?
Sir, what I also know is that
am I racist for pointing that out?
Okay. No, I didn't think that the guy was wrong for what he did. The guy was a hero. The comment wasn't meant to racialize the actual shooting and the event itself. When that happened, online, there were a lot of people who played the race card, and the minute they found out who the suspect was, they kept talking about black Somalian, then they started talking about Black Lives Matter, then they started talking about Obama, then they racialized it. So,
I'm sorry. Okay. So there's only so much I can take. I spent all afternoon listening to your podcast, which is the most racialized thing I think I've ever listened to in my life. And not
which
that
is not true. Which is not true.
Let me say this. You sent a series of tweets here noting the race and the nationality of the terrorist, and you also put quotes around the word terrorist. If you drive your car through a crowd of people and murder someone with a knife, are you not a terrorist? Why did you put quotes around?
I didn't say that the man. I didn't say that the man wasn't a terrorist. Tucker, are you going to say anything honest before we get the interview started, or it's just going to be a bunch of projections
I'm asking
of your
you what you meant. Why did you put
suspected white supremacist
around the word
views?
terrorist? Okay.
Because I didn't know if the guy was a terrorist or not. I didn't know if he was a suspect. I didn't know if that was the only suspect. So I didn't have all the facts. I wanted to wait for all the facts to come in before I labeled people, which is what you should do.
Okay. If someone drives his car through a crowd of people, here's what we knew from the first moment this happened. A guy drove his car through a crowd of people, intentionally hitting them, and then he attacked one of them with a knife. What else do you need to know in order to conclude that man is committing an act of terrorism? What's the missing piece there for you?
We didn't get all the facts initially because initially they said that there were other suspects. So I didn't have all the facts in. So I wasn't in the position to label anybody or bring my opinion to the table. I wanted to wait to see what all the facts were before I labeled people. And that's what you should do,
No,
Tucker.
you didn't. What you were trying to do is incite race hatred, which is what you do for a living, making this about race from the very start, when in fact race played no role. Now, you make the claim repeatedly in your writings and on your show, this is a, quote, white supremacist country. The guy who did this was imported here at taxpayer expense from Somalia. He was living, I believe, entirely on taxpayer expense. It was government-subsidized education at Ohio State. Why would a white supremacist country import Africans in large numbers and then pay for them to live here? I don't understand. It doesn't speak in narratives. It doesn't really fit your narrative, does it?
So we don't live in a system of complete white supremacy? Everybody's lying, Tucker?
Huh. So the overwhelming majority of immigrants to this country are non-white. Why would a white supremacist country import massive numbers of non-white immigrants? Not to blow your mind.
When you say non-white, I mean, there's Hispanic people who you say are non-white, but they're labeled as white. There are a lot of people who are classified as white that you say are non-white. So you play this racialized game. So who's non-white and who's white?
Okay. Look, I guess the point I'm making is that it's not 1955. It's a totally different country from the one you seem to be addressing on Twitter and in your podcast. Then answer this.
How's it different, sir?
In your tweet, it's different in this way. It is an entirely multi-ethnic country. It's not just black people and white people, one oppressing the other. It's a much more complicated landscape, as you may have noticed if you go outside. And so when you tweet out that this is a story of a white man killing a black man, that is misleading. That's not at all what happened. There was no racial motive that we know of here, and you're implying there was.
I didn't say there was a racial motive.
Your financial. Well, of course you did.
Do not listen to that little voice. You need to get things done.
The protesters in Ferguson have been focusing on the police. The numbers tell a different story, which Juan Williams referred to earlier. Homicide is the #1 cause of death among black males between ages 15 and 34. And 91% of black murder victims are not killed by the police, but killed by other blacks. So, in a sense, are the protesters focusing on the wrong problem?
Yeah,
you got it. You're a smart guy. Suspected white supremacists are very smart, so you got it.
Right. Thanks.
I could have sworn in response to a question you received from Mr. Cohen, you suggested race was the basis for why we may have this constitutional perspective. Did I understand you correctly?
I believe I was responding to the question about is there an explanation about why?
Well, let me offer another explanation to you, okay? Not a single Republican who is here right now ever served under a Republican president. Not one. So I hope I do live long enough to hold a Republican president to the exact same standard that I'm holding this one. But for you to run to race as the explanation for why we hold the position that we do, Harry Reid had a very different perspective on recess appointments when there was a Texan in the White House, and none of us accused him of geographic discrimination. In fact, hell, for that matter, Senator Obama had a different perspective on executive overreach than President Obama, and nobody runs to race as an explanation for that. So I would just caution you to be careful when you try to import motives to people. With that, what are the limits of prosecutorial discretion?
So among the limits of prosecutorial discretion is that the president must comply with existing statutes such as the appropriation. So the president can't simply stop deporting everybody. And in fact, what they've done here is they've listed new priorities.
So he can't stop deporting everybody. Well, I mean, what are the limits? So as long as he deports one person, then that's a proper exercise of prosecutorial discretion?
No, under the current appropriations,
I'm not talking about appropriations. I'm talking about the constitutional doctrine of prosecutorial discretion, which if you marry up with the pardon clause, means you don't have to enforce it, and if they do break it, you can pardon them for it.
Right. So under the constitutional doctrine, we should take two pieces. One is you've got the take care clause, which says that the president must take care to enforce the laws.
Mr. Cappy, your answer is much more complex than my question. What are the limits of the doctrine of prosecutorial discretion?
The limits are that the president must enforce the laws based on statute. So one is...
I thought he just announced he wasn't going to do that he was carving out categories and exceptions.
In addition...
And not on a case-by-case basis, too, for entire categories.
No, he is not stopping. He's not saying that he is not going to enforce the law whatsoever vis-a-vis those individuals. He is saying he is creating a program by which individuals can come forward if they meet certain criteria, and they will be held accountable to apply, pay a fee, pass a criminal background check.
But that's not the current law, right?
That is what is possible under deferred action, and that is what he has developed. Correct.
Well, I want to talk to you for a second about that background check, and I want to get into the policy a little bit. Can you tell me what a non-serious criminal is? Because when I look at the White House talking points, they're interested in serious criminals. So tell me what a non-serious criminal is.
It could include somebody, for example, who has been detained for shoplifting. Let's say a 22-year-old who takes lipstick, and that's a misdemeanor, and she.
So just misdemeanors, a non-serious criminal refers to misdemeanor convictions?
Right, and in fact, there are certain misdemeanors that are considered serious criminals under the recent memos from the Department of Homeland Security as well.
How about domestic violence? How many domestic violence convictions can you have and still remain?
I believe domestic violence is considered a serious crime under the new.
It wasn't under the comprehensive Senate immigration bill, which I have heard lots and lots of my colleagues embrace. I think you could have up to 3 domestic violence convictions and still remain on a path to something under the Senate version. How about recidivist DUI?
I believe DUI completely disqualifies you as well.
A single DUI conviction
correct.
is considered a serious criminal, even though it's a misdemeanor.
Much worse, and would have been if it weren't for the fast response of an Ohio State University police officer pictured there on the screen. He shot the killer dead within minutes. That officer is being praised tonight as a hero, of course, but not everyone on the activist left is impressed by what he did. Some have imputed racial motives to the shooting. Among those is radio show host and author Tariq Nasheed. He tweeted this yesterday. So white officer Alan Harupjo shot and killed the black Somali stabbing suspect in Ohio and is being paraded as a hero. That's interesting. Well, Tariq joins us now to explain. Tariq, thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Tucker.
Oh, of course. This struck me when I read it as a pretty cowardly thing for you to say for a bunch of reasons, but mostly because it's so imprecise. Okay. You don't spell out what you mean. You say that that's interesting. Why is that interesting? Would it have been better if this guy, the murderer, had continued to hack people with a butcher knife? Is that what you're saying? What are you saying?
No, I'm saying, Tucker, what's cowardly is to make up a false narrative that I didn't say or even imply by saying that I was not impressed or I was dissatisfied with the police's work. And basically, that tweet was very vague. It was very neutral. It was basically a statement. It wasn't even my opinion. So for you to start off the segment saying that it was cowardly, that's disingenuous.
Look, I'm having you on, Tariq, to explain yourself, and I'm asking you, what did you mean by that? Let me just say that I think when normal people, and I'm excluding you from that category, watched what happened yesterday, they didn't see the race of the terrorist or the race of the cop. They saw an American stopping a lunatic from murdering more people on a college campus.
So why did your white supremacist colleagues make it racial? So why did they make it racial? Why did so many people in the right? And how did they make it racial?
I don't know one person on any network who looked at this and said, here you have a white man killing a black man. They said, here you have a police officer, representative of order,
black
stopping a mass murder from continuing.
So was it Black Lives Matter fault? You guys always seem to blame Black Lives Matter, and Black Lives Matter is any black person you choose to make Black Lives Matter. So
right, okay, I'm missing the thread of your argument, but I think you've made your
you're not
point.
missing it.
Growth is the only guarantee that tomorrow is going to get better. The first question is very simple: what are you doing to develop yourself? %99% of people today are just assuming, that somehow they'll get better.
All the stress got me feeling like a head case lately. I don't know which way I'm supposed to go, but crazy, I'm so confused.